When will Los Angeles' eviction moratorium end? Will Los Angeles' eviction moratorium ever end? I'm Jon Schwartz, a house hacker and realtor in Los Angeles, California. You're watching House Hack Los Angeles, a channel about winning in the Los Angeles real estate market. And if you're planning to house hack in Los Angeles, these are questions that you need answers to. In this video, I'm going to explain why these are such important questions, and then I'm going to share the answers. Stay tuned. Okay, so why does the eviction moratorium matter so much to people who are planning to house hack? Pre-pandemic, in Los Angeles, there are only a few reasons why you could do a no-fault eviction. That's an eviction where the tenant is not at fault. And one of those reasons is if you own the building and you want to move into one of the units. Those are one of the few cases in which you could evict a tenant without them being at fault. At-fault evictions include things like not paying for rent, breaking the lease terms, etc. Now, the city has all sorts of rules for evicting tenants so that you can move into the unit. For example, you are supposed to live in the unit for 2 years. I think you are allowed to change your mind and move out if a life circumstance changes. There are also fees, and these are called relocation fees. The city requires you to pay a relocation fee to a tenant if you evict the tenant in a no-fault eviction. The fees range based on how long the tenant has been in the unit and whether they're a qualified tenant. Qualified tenants meet certain criteria. They're senior citizens, or have disability, or have children. So at the low end, we have $8,750 for a non-qualified tenant who has lived in the unit for 3 years or less. And at the high end, we have almost $22,000 for a qualified tenant who has been living in the unit for a while. Take a sip of tea. It may seem absurd to people watching from outside of Los Angeles that you'd actually have to pay to have a tenant move out, but it's worth it in Los Angeles. However, the eviction moratorium in Los Angeles has prohibited no-fault evictions. That means the owner-occupant relocation no longer allowed. So even though this has nothing to do with non-payment of rent or COVID or the pandemic specifically, if you buy a multifamily building in Los Angeles right now, a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, and there's not a vacant unit, you will not be allowed to move into it. This is actually really problematic if you're trying to house hack, because the advantage of house hacking, a lot of it is in the loan. You get an owner-occupant loan, which is less expensive than an investor loan. You can put down a lower down payment, and your rate's typically lower. Well, if there's no unit for you to move into, you can't be an owner-occupant, you can't get an owner-occupant loan. So the eviction moratorium has really limited options for house hackers in Los Angeles. You pretty much have to buy a property that has at least one vacancy. Now we know why we want the eviction moratorium to end. Now let's talk about what the eviction moratorium is exactly and when it will end. So there are actually 4 eviction moratoria, I guess that's right, that we need to talk about on 4 different levels. The federal eviction moratorium, the state eviction moratorium, the county eviction moratorium, and the city eviction moratorium. Incidentally, those are like the 4 levels of government that exist in America: federal, state, county, and city. And yes, if you're a municipal lawyer, which one of my clients is right now, I'm sure you can specify that no, there's actually things like fire districts and whatever else, but just like broadly speaking, federal, state, county, and city. Okay, so federal eviction moratorium first. It was actually put into place by the Centers for Disease Control, and then it was struck down by the Supreme Court on August 26, 2021. So, federal eviction moratorium, gone. We don't have to worry about it. Next is the statewide eviction moratorium in California. Now that was set to expire September 30th, 2021, and it actually did. I didn't think it would until it actually was expired, until it was October 1st, and there was no more statewide eviction moratorium in place. So, statewide eviction moratorium, we also don't need to worry about. Okay, Los Angeles County eviction moratorium. So this is interesting. The LA County eviction moratorium applies to unincorporated areas of Los Angeles County, as well as any city that doesn't have a city eviction moratorium in place. Here's a map of Los Angeles County. The white stuff is Los Angeles City. The brightly colored stuff are other cities, and the gray areas are unincorporated Los Angeles County. So again, the LA County eviction moratorium applies to unincorporated Los Angeles County, as well as any city that doesn't have an eviction moratorium in place. Now, the Los Angeles County eviction moratorium prohibits owner-occupant relocations for properties purchased after June 30th, 2021. So if you bought a property before June 30th and you want to move in, yes, you can relocate a tenant to do that. However, if you're buying a property now, you cannot relocate a tenant to move in. Now, the Los Angeles County eviction moratorium was set to expire on September 30th, but on September 28th, 2021, it was extended to January 31st, 2022. So the Los Angeles County eviction moratorium is in place until January 31st, 2022. Now let's talk city. The Los Angeles City Eviction Moratorium is actually tied into the Los Angeles local state of emergency. This is a state of emergency that was called by Eric Garcetti back in March 2020 and is renewed at least monthly, if not more frequently, by the city council. And basically, so long as there is a state of emergency in place, the eviction moratorium is in place. The Los Angeles City Eviction Moratorium prohibits all no-fault evictions. So that includes owner-occupant relocations, as well as the couple other no-fault evictions that were previously allowed. The Los Angeles City Eviction Moratorium was also set to expire on September 30th, but has been extended until October 24th, 2021. Now, I've tried to find online when the city council reconsiders the state of emergency and when they're going to renew it, and I couldn't find anything. The day this video drops is October 19th. So far, the eviction moratorium has not been extended, but I imagine that at some point before October 24th, it will be extended again. So that's where we are. We don't have to worry about a federal eviction moratorium. We don't have to worry about a statewide eviction moratorium. What we have to worry about is the county eviction moratorium and the city eviction moratorium. The bottom line is we don't know exactly when the eviction moratorium in Los Angeles is going to end. It will not end before January 31st, 2022, and it might continue past that based on what the county does and what the city does with its state of emergency. So here's what we're going to do. Because this is a matter that is very important to house hackers and is hopefully going to see some change soon, I will be updating the channel with any update that comes out regarding the county eviction moratorium, the city eviction moratorium, and the city state of emergency. Please subscribe now so you don't miss any updates.